Hey guys, welcome to the LT Brings the Heat podcast. We're your hosts, Sean Laird and Adam Heisler, where we talk about baseball and sports performance. With topics ranging from coaching, business, and player development, our goal is to bring you a no BS approach to development in baseball and sports performance. Hope you guys enjoy. Let's rock and roll. Hey guys, welcome to another episode of LT Brings the Heat. We're your hosts, Sean Laird and Adam Heisler. We got an episode today, recording. We're going to talk about a couple of different topics. It's been a little while since we recorded, and we're going to kind of talk about some new things that we're going to do with the podcast here coming up. But we're also going to kind of touch on the season. Like up here in Indiana, we're just now getting started with games. Like some teams are in the beginning of their second week, some teams are in their third week. And I know down in Bama, they've been rock and roll, and they're getting towards the end, getting ready to start postseason from what Adam and I were just talking about. But we're going to kind of touch on some things that we've been noticing and we've been talking about in the facilities a little bit with clients coming in and some things with parents. But we're excited to kind of touch on and speak to you guys today. But what's going on down in Bama, Adam?
Yeah, nothing too much. We took a little break. Sean had a spring break. We've just been running rampant down here with the teams going and with high school in full swing. Like you said, we only have, I think, 4 more games mostly until the playoffs will start up. Then playoffs will be here. Then before you know it, the summer ball season is going to kick off. So it's kind of a good time to bring up a couple of topics that we're going to talk about today to kind of give the ins and outs of what's going on, mid-season lessons if you're trying to just start now working, and how we've been warning you guys that you should have been in way early before the season to get ready for it. And now I think some guys are struggling and they're looking for help. So what's some things we can do to try to help them, or is it too late? We'll kind of discuss that. Also discuss kind of how to adjust different timing to pitches. Before we came on, me and Sean were talking about some hitters, some timing issues our hitters were having just from high school baseball, facing all different types of velocity. So we'll dive deep into that. But how's the season going? I know y'all just kicked off about 2 weeks ago. So how's the season going for most of your guys?
Oh, it's awesome right now. We had a lot of my clients, they've been kind of getting ready, and it's like, hey, when's the season going to start? And it's weird because we have spring break, and some teams will play through spring break, and some teams will take spring break completely off. So different organization or different schools are starting at different times. And my softball girls, they've been playing for almost damn near a month, which is awesome, and it's been cool to see them going. But yeah, they've been getting after it, and for me, it's really cool to be able to get a chance to go out and see them. So this past week, I was going to try to go see them. We had a bunch of rainouts, so I'm going to try to go see a couple of my guys and a couple of the teams play this coming weekend and start building up on that home run total. I think we're at 7 as of yesterday after the first couple of weeks of Jacks here at LT. So it's exciting to kind of see how guys are going. And we had a couple of guys hit some have a good nights last night. So for us, when it comes to season, and as you were saying, guys that have been kind of bouncing back in from the facility, they're like, Coach, man, like, I don't understand. Like, sometimes we're facing 88 and then the next day we're facing 72. Like, this is crazy. Like, how do I make these adjustments? And I'm glad you kind of started talking about it, but I kind of want to have you guys, because you guys are a bit deeper into the season. What have you been telling your guys, and kind of what's been your approach to kind of say, hey, like, you're going to be facing guys from different ends of the spectrum. You're going to be facing the high velo guys. You're going to be facing the guys that are super, super slow. And it's going to kind of test you a little bit. Like, what are kind of some of the advice and some of the things you kind of approaching on with these guys?
Yeah, so we spent a lot of time with the Hack Attack, the velo machine, to get these kids ready. And it's funny, one of our more top hitters got off to, I think he was 0 for 15 to start the season. And he was worried. He was not happy. He was freaking out, of course. And now I think he's first in the state in home runs, and he's like 4th in the country or something like that. So it all started to click for him. But one big thing that we had to hit on was he had just finished up the summer circuit playing elite travel ball. He was on the top team, I think at the time, he was with the East Coast Sox this summer. He's going to be with the Knights. But he spent a lot of time in the summer facing elite level pitching. And then when you get back to your high school, especially depending on what classification you are, you're not going to always face that elite level pitching every single night. So he was really having to slow everything down because he was back to facing, maybe it was mid 70s or low 80s. And every now and then you'll run into a guy every night. But one big thing that we had to kind of really approach with him was he had to start later and almost like he's sitting on off-speed pitches just to slow his bat down and slow his eyes down. He was moving just way too fast, jumping at the ball, leaping at the ball, doing the front side move, trying to make everything happen instead of just let the ball come to him. So a good advice I got, it was actually from Bailey Montgomery at Butler University. I kind of texted him back and forth. We talk probably every other week just about hitting stuff. And he said, just try to remind them like they're playing wiffle ball or lob ball in the backyard. And when they're facing these guys that like, I'm not saying don't get serious, but you almost have to trick your brain to, hey, I'm just hitting batting practice right now. It's not a live game where a guy's throwing 88 miles an hour. So that was one thing that helped. And then also just starting your gathering your load later, so to speak, and trying to foul a ball off on the opposite side of the field just to kind of really make sure you're letting that ball travel. So I think between that and doing a couple of new drills that we added into our routines of, we'll do one now. We call it the change-up drill, where we really making sure we'll load, get into our position, get the foot down super early, and we just have to challenge ourselves to wait for that ball to come to us, whether it's toss or even off the tee. Sometimes we'll mix it in batting practice, but it just helps them feel landing in a strong position, and it really makes them focus on the ball coming to them. So, and if you start to notice they're super early, like, they'll trick their brain into thinking, how long can I let this ball travel to me before I get my swing off? So that's some big things, because yes, at the top level of baseball, Major League Baseball, is the hardest to hit for sure. But high school baseball is so hard from a difference of the variety of guys you're going to face. So maybe you face a 3A school and their top pitcher throws 78 miles an hour. And then on the weekend, you play a 6A school and they have a guy pumping 88 to 92. And so it's a big change going back and forth. And you'll see those elite level hitters that are used to the velocity. The first thing they want to do is kind of tell themselves, like, I can't hit slow pitching, like I can only hit fast pitching. And what I've been trying to tell them and help them understand is that's great, but like, if you're supposed to be elite level hitter, where you got to be able to hit all types of velocity. And so it's been like a challenge to them, like, hey, just don't tell me you're the guy that, well, I can hit 92, but I can't hit 75. Well, try to figure it out, because I promise you, when these stats are being put in at the end of the season, it's not going to have an asterisk saying, well, he hit this against top guys, but then he hit this against everybody else. So they're not going to worry about that. It's when you're out there, just try to compete the best you can and make your adjustments, and you'll know which guys that you're about to face going into the night. So if you know you're facing a slow guy that day, just challenge yourself in BP to sit back as long as possible, to on my cage work as long as possible, of letting the ball travel to me. So that's amid some big things that's going on. And I know before we came on here, you had mentioned, your guys have mentioned kind of the same stuff of, man, coach, how am I supposed to hit this average high school pitching, or even below average high school pitching early in the season, especially when they all want to get off to good starts?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's something like this year, I feel like we've talked about it a lot more, and we've talked about with guys in the past, and especially the elite travel guys in the past that come in high school, like you were saying. There's always a couple things of advice, and it's funny you mentioned the Butler coach was talking about. We kind of teach them, and we tell them, like, I say it a little bit differently. I'm like, hey, you've got to go up there so relaxed. You got to go up there so calm. And I know it's easy for the anxiety to kick in. You're like, you're jumpy and you're really trying to get after it. And it's like, you can't be the guy that's jumpy at the plate when you're facing this kind of pitching. You've actually got to kind of take down, like lower that heart rate, relax, breathe. And you've got to sit here and think about, this guy's throwing slow as hell. He's not going to beat me. So I've got to sit here. The only way I'm going to get out is I'm going to beat myself. So, and I talk about, and I preach on this really hard about holding your launch position. Yep. And I'll use A-Rod. And I don't know who was throwing, but some position player came in. This is years and years and years ago. And some position player came in, was throwing these super slow lollipop, like ephus pitches to the plate. And there's a video of him floating around somewhere. I wish I had it. Where he loads and separates, gets to his launch position, he holds, and it looks like he's holding for a clear 2 seconds, which in baseball, terminology, 2 seconds is an eternity at the plate. It's probably not that long, but he sits there and holds, and then holds that 45, and all of a sudden just pow, just explodes. It's like a 400-foot bomb. And I sit there and I talk about it all the time, and I'll use these guys, and I need to use the link and start sending the link to the guys so they can understand that. But we'll purposely say, hey, man, like, I know that you're geared up in the season. We're purposely trying to prepare for those 90-mile-an-hour arms and get you ready, get the hands going and flowing. But it's also discipline too. It's like, we got to treat every pitch like it's an off-speed pitch. And our approach usually is center to right center with most of our guys. Some guys will go center, left center, depending on the strengths and weaknesses of the hitter. But then we just move down the line. So we usually will say, hey, we're going to think right field line. And sometimes I have to be clear. We talk about semantics all the time. So I go, does that mean that I'm saying you're going to hit it down the right field line? I go, no, it just means that you're thinking right field line so that ball gets deep enough and you let it travel enough in order to get that ball in the zone a little bit longer. And I kind of treat it like those slow, like those lefty 12-6 curveballs. Like, I used to have to think like that myself as a hitter, like really keep the shoulder on and let that ball travel a little bit. And I go, listen, we're going to do this with screen toss, and I'm going to throw BP super slow. And we're going to try to get you some feels, and we'll still work our hard velo, but sometimes I'll go back and forth. I'll go, all right, for the next 10 pitches, I'm going to go hard BP. Next 10 pitches, I'm going to go slow BP. And we do it a lot at screen toss as well, because we can kind of pinpoint exactly where we're going to throw. Because those slow guys, like most pitchers, obviously they're taught, hey, we're going to pitch away to hitters. We're going to pitch away, pitch away, pitch away. So the guy's pitching away and he's throwing slow. It's going to, the perceived velocity throwing away is going to be even slower than what it would be if it would be middle or inside. And so that's where we're kind of getting on. And then we're working on, like you said, the pause. We're on the same page right there. We're talking about, you get your stride foot down super early and you're almost like kind of waiting. And we'll do so many pause reps and so many launch position separation reps where we're holding that and holding that 45. And I had two guys that are specifically playing for a 2A team, which up here in Indiana, there's 4 classes of baseball. And 2A, there's a lot of guys that are going to be throwing in the 60s and low 70s. And his first game, or one of the first games, hit lasers, a couple doubles, and then against a decent pitcher. And then it was slow from there on out. And he said, I was out front. I had a couple of singles, but I was popping up and I wasn't really hitting the ball as hard. And your example of your guy starting out 0 for 15, that's a perfect example of a guy that makes a phenomenal adjustment, the guy that has phenomenal tools, but also phenomenal mental toughness. Like there's a lot of guys that start out 0 for 15 or 0 for 20 or whatever, and they kind of break down and they start pointing the finger and trying to blame somebody, or they're like, well, this is happening because this pitching sucks, instead of saying, you know what, I gotta make an adjustment. I gotta beat these guys. And the big thing for me, the biggest results that I see when guys actually make those adjustments, obviously holding that launch position in a good spot longer, but to me, it's just slowing everything down. Like, and I'll use the terms like, we're going to slow down the fast throwers, the harder throwers, and we're going to speed up the slow throwers. And the way we do that is, like you said, we're going to start super late. We have a template of when we start our load. We're going to test that in the on-deck circle and in the hole where you're waiting, and you're going to work on actually practicing your swing. For me, I see a lot of guys, I'm like, hey, work on your timing, and they're just working on their stride. And it annoys me. It pisses me off, because I'm like, dude, like there's 2 parts to your timing. There's your stride and there's your actual swing. Like, yes, sometimes your stride is going to get down super early. Sometimes it's going to get late. But we've got to make sure that we're pulling the trigger with the upper half just as much as we're in the bottom half when it comes to timing. So I have guys actually work on their swing, and I'll get guys in the cages next to me, and we'll work on kind of either they're hitting off the tee, watching me tracking the ball, and then they hit off the tee, or they're envisioning hitting a low and outside pitch or the away pitch that may be 68, 65, 70 miles an hour from there. I heard there was a coach the other day talking about putting the pitching machine on really slow, which I don't advise doing that personally, because I would feel like I would drop my hands and go even further, because I don't see any kind of arm action. There's no timing mechanism for me. Like, and I've talked about this before. Like, I don't have any issues with guys working on fastball velo. If I was going to put them on the pitching machine, I would just throw slow curveballs instead of like the slow fastballs personally. But I was kind of talking to a coach about that the other day. But yeah, man, like to me, that's kind of the X's and O's of what I do to kind of slow everything down for them, or also AKA speed up those pitchers a little bit, because that's the thing about hitting in high school. Like, and people wonder why, like, guys at the next level, well, this kid in high school tore it up. Mm-hmm. Well, he tore it up against what kind of pitching, and there's a big difference between guys that hit. I've had guys on the Bulls that'll hit 2A pitching really well, and they come to the Bulls and maybe they hit 180 to 200 because they're facing more elite level pitching, and they have to be on their toes and kind of be more prepared for that elite level. And it's just a big difference, and it's a drastic difference of going from pitcher to pitcher. And it takes a lot of toughness and also awareness of what your body's doing, awareness of what the pitcher's doing, and awareness of how to start your body in a lot of those instances.
Yeah, and one big thing I've done lately, especially since we've been working on maybe the slower type of pitching, is if I'm doing screen toss or front toss and I notice they're early and spinning off, I'll throw the next pitch even slower, and I continue to work down until they make the adjustment of, all right, you're going to let this ball finally get to you, or you're going to continue hitting rollovers to the shortstop because you're so early on it. So it basically just tricks them that, like, Coach Adams is not going to flip this thing regular until I get it corrected, and it helps them understand right away how to get it corrected right away. So that's one thing. And then, like we both talked about, getting to our launch early. It's funny because we've had guys get to the launch. We'll do it with Rapsodo and Blast on, and how many guys are hitting the ball maybe even harder with getting to their launch earlier, and they're having faster bat speeds from it. So it's helping them understand, like, even though if I got it down super early, like, I'm still hitting the balls even harder or just as hard as I normally do. So maybe I don't need that big move that I used to have. It's just get to my spot on time, and I'm still going to hit the ball hard, especially when you face these elite level guys of more simple it is, the easier it is to repeat. So now it's, let's take away the big moves and the big slop that we have and get to our spot on time and literally just feel like we're catching the barrel and letting the big guy supply the power. So it's been cool to kind of make some adjustments even within our own progressions that we're doing here at the facility. And I think that's just the best way to kind of learn what's going on the field. And it goes back to the communication we're having with our hitters of, hey, what are you struggling with out there? So now how can we help fix it while you're working with us right now? Because we see you 1 day a week, where the other 6 days, what are you really trying to work on? So that, we always talk about it on here back and forth, is you've got to understand why you're struggling and be able to relate that to your pitcher, or relate that to your hitting coach. What are you struggling against certain pitchers or certain pitches maybe? That way, when you come in, it's not just, hey, coach, let's just go through our normal routine today. Well, that's fine to get your normal routine in, but if you're struggling with something, we've got to try to make that adjustment so we can get that fixed in order to get you back on the right track.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's a perfect segue into kind of what we're going to touch on a little bit now, is kind of guys that didn't necessarily start lessons in the off season. They're kind of jumping in last second. They're wanting to start lessons, whether it's in season or maybe they started right before season. Because part of that, like you're talking about, guys knowing what their mistakes are, awareness of their weaknesses, awareness of their strengths, and being able to communicate with their coach. What are you doing those 6 days? That's part of what a hitting coach does, is help you guys understand that and teach you guys that in the off season. And to kind of preface this before we get going is, Adam and I we're gonna kind of build on this podcast a little bit. We're gonna start uploading clips, kind of short tips of the day, when it comes to hitting or recovery or pitching, strength and conditioning, or whatever, something that we're passionate about, something that really hits us. I released something the other day on YouTube I shared, and it was kind of the topic of understanding one coach, one philosophy when it comes to hitting mechanics, and kind of not getting your mind kind of warped and kind of struggling with that mentality. I'm going to upload that on the podcast, and we're going to start doing that here and there, because there's so many things that kind of hit us as coaches and we get really passionate about. And for me personally, I really have to get it out in the open sometimes, because you get so passionate about it, and you want to educate, but also, you want to kind of help people understand the game as much as possible, as well as understand the process. And me and Adam have talked about this a little bit, but I'm gonna kind of let you take over, Adam, about guys that maybe necessarily didn't work in the off season. Maybe they're wanting to start lessons now. And I always say this, like, there's nothing wrong with starting lessons in season. You can make gains in season 100%. Is it optimal? No, we would want to start in the off season and kind of build from there. But I've kind of helped these guys understand, where we're coming from, and kind of understand this process behind them. Hey, coach, Coach Adam, I haven't seen you in like 8 months, but I just had 2 bad weeks. And I really need you to help come in here and wave a magic wand and help me out right here.
Yeah, it's tough. It's very tough. Never will we tell a kid that we don't want to work with them. But at the same time, we're going to be real with you and tell you, hey, where were you to get ready for the season? And why are you just now coming to us? Are you coming to us because you're having these 2 bad weeks? Well, if we would have been working maybe to get ready for the season, maybe we're not having those struggles right now. And we're having a little bit better line of open communication. So it's funny, because I've been getting some texts like that lately. And I think there's been 2 reasons why. Number one is a lot of our hitters are really doing really, really well. And we always talk about on here is when our hitters do well, it's the best advertisement in the world for us. But they're doing really well because of the hard work they've put in and the small amount of help that we've helped guide them in the right direction. And then the second thing is, everybody automatically thinks something's wrong with their swing when they're not having success on the field. And sometimes that is the case, but other times it is the timing, it is the pitch selection, some other stuff that goes into it with it. So when we get these texts, number one, I'm going to give you a hard time. I gave the guy a hard time when I got this message a couple weeks ago and said, basically, where were you 8 months prior? And he kind of just said, sorry, coach, I was busy, but like, I really need your help now. And I said, all right, we're going to see what we can do, but we don't have this magic potion or magic wand, like Sean said, that can get you back into the groove. So what I like to do with guys that are coming in midseason, like Sean said, like, it's fine, we can make it work, but maybe we're not going to reach that maximum potential until we actually get months and months and months to develop exactly what we're looking for out of you and what you do really well, and how can we get you to continue to progress. So with all of our guys, if we haven't seen them in a while, or if they're new guys, the first night is honestly not even really a lesson. It is we're going to watch you go through the stretch routine. We're going to watch you way your body moves from assessment wise. We're going to get video of you off the tee, off toss, and off BP. And then we'll try to go over a video with you on, hey, what we're going to work on going forward. So what I like to do with guys that are just now coming in is, let's watch that video, and we're going to try to find 1 or 2 things that we can maybe do a quick fix on. And if we can find those, we'll go right back in the cage and work maybe 1 of those 2 things. Now, the last thing I want to do is start breaking down a video, and maybe my eyes are telling me there's 7 different things that they're doing wrong, but I don't want to tell them all 7 different things because they're going to leave more confused than when they came in. So let's try to find 1 or 2 things that are the most important. What I think is getting to your spot on time. So are they getting there? If not, that's where we've got to fix, number 1. And then number 2 is, where is their bat working in a position and what path is it working on? And then let's see that, boom. And then, hey, there's your 2 things you're going to work on. These are the drills. I'll show them. And then once their time is finished, it's, hey, you continue to go do these on your own. Here's my number. If you ever have a question what it is, text me. I'll send you a video of it. One thing I want to get really good at, and I think that we're going to be able to do, is we're going to be doing these tips and drills as well with our videos that we work with on hitters or throwers, whatever we're doing. So now we're going to be able to have these access to videos for maybe a guy that forgot what the hip coil low drill is. Oh, I'm going to go to the YouTube page, pull it up real quick. And that's what it was exactly. Because it is funny how some kids will leave the facility and then they forget some things they worked on. And then you get them back in there like, oh crap, coach, my bad. I forgot this one. And it's like, all right, you're not understanding this. You need to take everything you're learning today and take that with you. Just like what you learned at class today, you've got to take that home to get ready for that test. So having these videos out there is going to be good for parents as well as for kids that are looking to get better. Or maybe I don't need this drill. So guess what? You don't have to watch that one. Maybe this is the one that Coach Adam or Coach Sean says I need to really work on to get my lower half right. So I'm going to study this one and add this to my routine. So more than anything, it's just these guys that are coming in now is understand that it's not going to be a quick, easy fix. We're not like a Band-Aid fix. I wish it was that easy, but it's not. And I don't know how to stress that even more. And the last thing before I turn it over to you, Sean, is these guys that come in, and maybe it's some parents. I've had a dad come in, and we were talking about this a couple weeks ago, and he said, hey, I really want to work on this with my son on a pitching standpoint. Now his hitting's fine. I just need him to get reps in. And I kind of responded with like, well, I'm a hitting coach. I'm not a BP thrower. So if he's coming here, like, I'm going to try to get him better by getting in the right mechanics. And the dad was kind of standoffish about it. I said, look, it is what it is. Like, he's a 10-year-old kid. I doubt he has the top level mechanics right now. Mm-hmm. You may think so, and maybe that's what it is, but he's not going to come in our facility and just use us for us to throw in BP, and we're not allowed to say anything to him. Like, I don't understand, number 1, why you're paying us. And then number 2, like, I don't understand exactly why you're here. If he just wants to do pitching, that's fine. We'll just do pitching and he doesn't hit in here. But if any kid's ever training in our facility, like, we're going to coach him and we're going to coach him hard. We're going to try to coach him the right way. And if that's not for you, then I'm sorry, but the High School Heat Academy isn't for you either. So you can just try to find somewhere else maybe that will throw little Johnny some batting practice and he can get his work in that way. But I wanted to get that off. Sean, what's some things that guys are coming to you about? I know I saw that video and I thought it was awesome and I thought it was real, just like you always are. And it gets the point across to maybe too many voices. Too many voices isn't a good thing. We've got to find one. We've got to find one, and everybody works together. And hitters, when we talk about voices, it's what makes it click for you. Maybe it's not for everybody, but what makes it click for you?
Yeah, absolutely. And to kind of start off is that ass ain't coming from BP. And where am I due? Get off your own ass and throw your own son if you're looking for reps, dude. Like, you're gonna come in and ask us to throw BP and give the kids some reps. And also, if your son's that good at hitting at 10 years old, dude, you should open up your own facility and start creating Mike Trouts all over the place. Like, I had a dad that was similar like that 4 or 5 years ago. And I go, hey, so I always ask the parents just to kind of they have no idea that I'm testing them when I ask them this question. Now they do if they're listening to this podcast. But I'm like, hey, on a scale of 1 to 10, how good do you think your kid is on, as a projection to a Division I baseball player? And most parents will answer the question somewhat correctly. And then every now and then you'll have a parent like, he's like a 9 or a 10. He's like, he's already good. He's legit. And I had this dad that said 9 or a 10. He's like, his hitting's great. His hitting's awesome. And I'm kind of like, dude, what are you doing here? Like, thinking that in the back of my head. I didn't say anything. Oh, well, we'll see. I said, always the first lesson, I'll do some video, I'll analyze, and I'll say kind of where we need to go with some things. I do the same thing in the weight room. Like, I've had kids come in and go, I was like, what's your experience in the weight room? They're like 7 out of 10. And I go, at the end of the workout, I go, what do you think it is now? Probably a 2 or a 3. Like, your experience is based on your experience. Your work ethic is based on what you think is hard. Like, you don't know what you don't know. And so anyways, that dad at the end of the lesson, the kid was at a 2 or a 3.
Yeah.
And he was seeing a result on the field of a single or ground balls between the 5, because he hit a lot of balls in the 5-6 hole. He was seeing that as like, well, his hitting's awesome. Like, he's getting hits all the time in the 5-6 hole. And he was playing rec ball. I wasn't playing elite level competition. And so forth. Anyways, long story short, I kind of told that dad, I was like, hey, listen, like your kid's got some great ability. I'll tell him the truth. I'll be up front, but I'll say, hey, your kid's really quick twitch. He's got good bat speed, but he rolls over everything, hits everything into the ground side. So we're going to work on really trying to go gap to gap because I think he's got some ability to really have some pop as he gets older. And it was all positive things. Long story short, I never saw that guy again. So it's all right. I'd say, one or two guys out of, 50 or whatever, sometimes that happens. And it is what it is. Working for greatness isn't for everybody. Sometimes the world needs average people too. And if that's the mindset for people, they're going to roll with it. But anyways, to kind of preface on that, when guys are coming in or kind of talk on that and elaborate on that, when guys are coming in season, basically guys that come in, and there's a lot of people that sign up in the middle of lessons, I get super pumped about, because like you just said, like our guys are really showing right now when it comes to hitters. And it's an awesome form of flattery when guys are like, hey, like we just had 5 or 6 people sign up and sign waivers in this past week. And just from referrals from people, hey, Johnny's doing well, Brady's doing really well. Like, hey, I want to get in on this. And it's awesome. And I love it. But we always have to tell them and explain to them like, hey, like, Brady's working the last 8 months out of the season in the off season. And he's literally completely built himself into what he's doing right now. We can't, in span of 2 to 4 weeks, boom, like click all of a sudden and be like, hey, you're the exact same. You're going to have the exact same results as him. Everybody, ages in different ways and everybody grows in different ways. And sometimes it takes, 3-4 months to things click. Sometimes it takes, a month, and sometimes it takes longer, and kind of guys build into it. It's all based on strengths and weaknesses. And it's a sincerest form of flattery. And people are like, hey, like you are making all these elite hitters and stuff like that. And it's like, we are guiding guys through the process. Do I say that we make elite hitters? Hell yeah, I say that. But I'm going to tell you right now, the guys that work hard and listen to what we're saying, like you were just saying, is like the guys that, hey, do this drill this week, it's going to help you with this. And they're putting in that work, and then it completely helps them fix that flaw or alleviate some flaws. Those are the guys that make gains in this world. It's like guys, the same thing at schoolwork. Like, you go home and you work on the stuff you need to work on, and it shows in your grades show in the classroom. Like you've got to do stuff outside of your lessons and outside of your games in order to be great. The worst kid on the team is doing the same amount of reps as you are in practice. So if you're not doing extra, it's not going to play. But to kind of touch on what you were saying before, and I'll upload that episode the next day or so, because I loved it. I got done with it and I was like, man, that was good. That was straight from the heart. But I had a kid, it was an assistant coach that was talking about a drill. And there was a couple other things. There was a dad asking about not changing certain things with his son. And I was just kind of like, what the hell? Like, your kid's been here for 6 months. And the dad didn't say that to me, but the dad said it to the son. And the son repeated it out loud and said, like, my dad's just worried about, people changing certain things and changing mechanics. And I go, what the hell does that mean? I said, we've changed, your swing's changed completely the last 6 months. I go, if we change things, we change them for the better. Otherwise, don't come anymore.
Yeah.
And that kind of mindset, it irritates me. It's like, hey, like, if the kid's doing well right now, we're going to build on him doing well. And that kid's ironically, that kid's leading this team in batting average right now. Yeah. And it's like, okay. Yeah. But so coaches and certain aspects of certain coaches, there's a lot of guys that feel like they have to change things constantly. And this one coach was basically dogging a drill that I have my kids do. And it kind of fired me up, and he didn't have any context behind it. He didn't give a reason why. He didn't give, what he thinks is best. It didn't give, hey, what's your issue? What's your problem? And for me, as a hitting coach and guys that are going to hitting instructors, you have to understand what the guy is trying to achieve. What's he trying to achieve? What's the kid's weaknesses? What's the context behind his weaknesses? What's his physical limitations? We talk about mobility and strength and being able to rotate, have an efficiency and rotation in the bottom half. Some guys are hypermobile, and that affects them at the plate. Like you talk about all the time, hitting in a phone booth. And I've heard you say that a million times. And when I heard you say that, I was like, that's awesome, because I used to say between two walls, phone booth is so much easier to explain. Like guys that are hypermobile in their spine or hypermobile in their bottom half, like that's very hard for them to turn in a tight window. And so, like, am I going to work on more mobility with that kid? No, we're going to work on more stability and tight turns, and really work on, actually tension in his body a little bit to kind of help him with those inside pitches and so forth. But anyways, long story short is, in this game, if we have done a bunch of different voices, the old adage, my dad used to box back in the day. I did a little bit myself, obviously, when I was growing up and going to this game, and I love boxing. And the old adage is you need one coach in your ear. And one coach in your ear is so you don't have distractions. You don't have other people saying different things. You don't confuse the player. Because if you have a dad saying one thing and you have a coach saying another thing and your hitting coach saying something completely different, this kid is going to have zero clue what to focus on and zero clue what to do. And as a parent, if you invest money into having a kid with a hitting coach, hitting instructor, let your hitting instructor do his job, period. You might have to help your kid with timing and reps and stuff like that and certain things. And if you want to know what your coach is doing, then or what the hitting coach is doing, then you need to know, like, build upon what he's saying, use the same language. There's nothing I love more than when a parent comes in and goes like, hey, I want to make sure I'm using the same language. We'll be watching from afar, or I'm going to have my kid update me exactly what you're doing. Most of the high school kids come by themselves. Parents drop them off because the parents trust us. But I explain to the kids as much detail as possible. I don't like teaching robots. And that's why I think a lot of coaches do is they're like, hey, you're going to do this drill, this drill, this drill. And there's a certain school that I know in a certain vicinity of kids that I train, I won't mention, but they've been doing the same 3 drills every off season for the last 5 years. Yep. And it has not changed. They're doing the exact same drills, the exact same mindset. And I'd be willing to bet that coach doesn't really teach it very well. And they're not changing anything. And I said in that episode clip, I go, the only constant is change. If you're not changing, you're not growing, you're not adapting, you're not teaching different this year than what you were 5 years ago. You don't know what you're talking about. You're clinging on something that held in the past. Now, is there irrefutable truth? Is there irrefutable data that's going to work? Yes, there is. But there's always a better way of doing things. There's always a cleaner way of doing things. There's always, the same exact drill might have 4 or 5 variations to work with 4 or 5 different kids. There's so many different things that we can do and adjust to kind of help kids. Like, give an example. One of my favorite drills in the world is called an inward turn drill. It helps teach kids the coil, help teach the kids the load in the bottom half, it help teach the bottom, the swing path. It helps teaches the sequence of the swing. There's a million things that it does. Some guys, I allow them to rotate their lead foot and work on heel plant to start the swing. Some guys will spin their front foot so they have no bottom half and their heel never really hits the ground. There's no ground contact. And with that, they're basically swinging on one leg, leaning back. They're getting way too much. There's the spine angles just collapsing on the backside and they spin off the ball. So with that drill, certain guys, I have to have them keep their heels on the ground. And so they can feel that ground force production and actually execute the sequence in the swing. Most coaches, they'll look at this and go, oh, so this is the drill that you're doing. Okay, I'm going to have everybody do this drill. And you got 60 kids on the team. And you got 60 different versions of the drill that's being executed because they don't understand the context and the purpose behind it. And so for me as a hitting coach, it is so important for you to understand and have your kids understand the whys, have your kids, understand what they're trying to do. I had a kid the other day who was like, I started out really hot. In the last couple of games, I'm rolling over and everything. I go, well, are you doing these, 3 or 4 drills that got you the swing that's going right now that helped you alleviate some of these weaknesses of pulling the front side? He goes, well, no, I just hit BP all the time. I go, well, dude, that's your problem. Like right now in the season, you're getting nothing but overhand. You're getting nothing but overhand BP and overhand in the game. You have to do those little things. And I use Kobe Bryant as an example, and I'll kind of transfer this over to you, Adam. But people used to ask Kobe Bryant, like, hey, why are you doing all these basic things all the time? Like you're the best player in the NBA. Why are you doing this? And I heard this quote from him, and he goes, I'm the best player in the NBA because I do the basic things better than everybody else. Yep. And that's the thing is, like, I think we forget, like, your swing is like a car. If you buy this brand new car, right, you don't just buy this car and like, boom, it's done. It's perfect. It's awesome. You have to change the oil. You have to check the fluids. You have to make sure the brakes are working well. You have to make sure you're taking it in and getting checkups. Your swing is exactly the same way. You have to make sure you're checking things off and doing your due diligence of taking care of the car. You're washing it. You're cleaning it. There's so many things that go into the swing. You can't just sit here and take BP all day. If BP was the answer to everybody's problems, everybody would be the best hitter in the world. Like everybody gets BP in season. But it's the X's and O's and things and head coaches for high schools or colleges being on the same page as their hitting instructors is so important. And you don't have to know exactly like detail word for word, like I have to treat this like the Bible. You just have an idea and the context behind what's the kid's faults, what's the coach trying to do. Okay, let's build upon what these faults are. This kid spins off his front side. Let's work on some drills to help him with that. Okay, this is the drill you're doing. Teach me this drill this coach is trying to work on. Let's get the context behind it. And we're going to work on building with this. But also, here's a couple other things that I really like as well. That's going to help you with pulling the front side. And that's how we work together. And that's how we do it. It's not, hey, this coach is, this drill's stupid. I don't know what you're doing. I don't like this drill. Or, hey, you're going to do what I say when you're with me, and you can, ignore what this guy is saying. Like, nah, man, like that's just not how we grow the game. That's not how we teach guys to perform at elite level.
No, and I love that you brought up how BP just isn't the answer. So 2 of the best players in the game, Mike Trout, Bryce Harper, they said they hit BP on the field maybe once a week, that they prefer to do the cages underneath, whether it's curveball machine, short bat work, flips, front toss. Like, these are the 2 of the best players in the game that don't hit batting practice but once a week on the field. And so for those hitters out there that think they need BP all the time, like, that isn't the answer. So they know what works for them, so that's what they do. They don't do what everybody else does just because they either have to or that it is the answer to everything. So I love that you brought that up right there. And a big thing I've been telling guys a lot lately is, like, going back to the fundamentals. So you mentioned the Kobe Bryant, what he said about fundamentals is going back to that. And so what is fundamentals from a hitting standpoint? It all starts with what? Hitting the ball with the bat. What holds the bat? My hands. So my hands, they're the number one driver of the whole swing. So if my bat path is working the correct way, my hands are driving my swing, my body is athletic enough where you guys are now, it's going to work like it's supposed to. But now if I'm doing the total opposite, what a lot of young kids do and a lot of high school hitters that have found the weight room is they swing their body hoping that the bat makes contact with the ball and they fly off, they spin off. And these are starting to become more and more common with guys that are getting those flip rounds where they're trying to crush the ball 350 feet off front toss. Mm-hmm. And they're flying off the ball instead of working their accuracy of their barrel. And so one thing I've been really preaching to the guys is if you drive the hands, the rest will take care of itself. So let's get back to basics and fundamentals of making sure that swing path is the right way. Tiger Woods, his swing coach, used to talk to him about, hey, you're so explosive with your lower half that I need you to think my hands beat my lower half. Do they really? No. When you watch slow-mo video, you'll see his lower half wins. But for Tiger's brain to trigger and work like it was supposed to stay on the ball longer, he had to think his hands were beating his hips. Mm-hmm. And it worked for him. And so now you talk about with different players and different explosiveness. And if you're strong and you already have that, now let's be as accurate as we can with this barrel versus the other way around where, hey, I'm big and strong, I'll run into it every now and then just because I'm going to swing in the same spot. So I can't tell you how many young hitters, like just watching some guys hit, looks like they swing in the same spot no matter where the pitch is. And you've got them understand it's like, yes, your swing doesn't change, so to speak, mechanic-wise on different pitches, but you still have to swing at the ball and see the ball. I don't think a lot of guys are seeing the ball or knowing what part of the ball they're even attacking. I'll flip with guys and hit with guys and, hey, what part of the ball are you hitting? I don't know. Or the top? I don't know. And we want to hunt the inside bottom corner of the ball. That forces yourself to stay inside the ball. The best hitters in the world, what do they all do? They stay inside the baseball for a long time. So now it gets back to, well, Coach, I thought y'all teach all this new technology, new school stuff. Well, there is new school stuff, but the old school stuff is still very important. And that's why we talk about on this podcast is we're trying to bridge the gap of everything. And the more simple we can keep hitting, the more easy it is to be repeatable and you're not overcomplicating things up there at the plate. So I thought that was a great discussion just to kind of bounce ideas back and forth off of what we're seeing with guys and what to work on when you're doing lessons and what to work on outside of doing lessons and how it is important for these parents, everybody to be on the same page. And if there's a high school coach out there and he's having you do a certain drill, like we said before, is ask him why you're doing this drill. Don't just do it just because everybody's been doing it for 5 years and he's making you do it. Be the guy that asks, Coach, I'm not trying to disrespect you, but like, what is the purpose of this drill? And see what he says. Maybe he'll be like, he'll think to himself like, I don't know. I guess this is why we're doing it. Maybe he'll get turned off by it and say, just do it anyway and just go about your business. But you never really know until you ask. And what I would say is if you're confident enough to know that you're one of the best hitters on the team, and you ask, I promise you he's probably going to give you an answer. Whereas maybe if you're not starting or you're not a strong hitter and you ask, it's going to look a little different there. So if you're having confidence, you're successful, and you're one of the better players on the team, is feel free to have these open conversations with him just to see where he's at and see if maybe y'all can bridge the gap and work together on some things.
Absolutely. And this high school coach is like, "Hey, why are you doing this drill for?" And he goes, "Well, I saw Coach Adam do it, so we're going to start doing this drill." It's like, "Hey, that's awesome, man. That's cool, copying Adam, but what's the context behind the drill?
Yes.
What are we doing?" Like, I have some videos that are 17, 18 minutes long for one drill, and I guarantee somebody watches just the execution of the drill, like, "All right, well, this is what we're doing. We're just going to start executing this all the time." It's like there's so like every drill that you do, you could talk for 10 plus minutes on it. There's so many parts of it. Like we create new drills all the time just to kind of get some feels. And like you said, the new school, old school approach is like the old school is the feel guys. And I think that's so important. And we've had guys that think that feel is the most important thing. And that's all they rely on. And the new school guys is, what's really happening, the actual data and stuff like that. And you can use both of those to your advantage. And then I try to use those both to my advantage as much as possible. And at the end of the day, you could have the best results in the world as a hitting coach or as a player, as a coach. But the elite guys, that's like, I'm still trying to get even better results. I'm still trying to learn even more. It's never like, all right, well, we're good enough. So boom, we're done. We're going to hang up shop. Like everybody's got to start rolling in and everybody's got to start hitting bombs. So we're going to kind of lead in and kind of finish off with this last part here. And it's kind of parents taking things personal. We touch on parents from time to time on the podcast. And I heard this story yesterday of a dad wanting to fight a coach. One of the kids, some of the stories that I hear when the kids talking about just blows my mind. Like, a kid could be like, man, I'm tearing it up. I'm feeling one thing. And the dad's like, well, you suck, or this kid's like, he gets removed from a game. And apparently the dad was very upset about it. The story that I was told, and he was pacing around wanting to fight the guy. And I'm like, what in the hell is going on? Like, and so I kind of want to say this is like, parents, like decisions made by coaches when it comes to the lineup and when it comes to the field, whatever it is, like they're making decisions on what they feel is best for the lineup, what they feel is best for the game, the best situation, put themselves in the best position for winning. Nothing is personal. Like, I'm going to tell you right now, like I was playing in South Alabama, and there were certain times that I was taken out of certain games in college. My dad drove 12 hours down and didn't even get to see me play. Was I pissed off because I wanted to play? Hell yeah, I absolutely wanted to play. Did I deserve to play in certain instances? Yes, I probably did. In some instances, probably I was struggling. I shouldn't have. But it's the game. Like the coach is making decisions. If you have a problem with it as a player, you go up and you talk to the coach. Like, hey, coach, I feel like I should be in this lineup right now. Hey, coach, I feel like I should be in this situation right now. Or you talk to them after the game, whatever it is. But your parents being upset and try to take things personal, like, just because you're taken out of a game doesn't mean you suck. Just because you're taken out of the game doesn't mean your coach hates you. And there's another story I'll tell you. 4 or 5 years ago, this is a true story, and I still to this day it blows my mind. But this dad showed up for the game. He had his family with him, he had his parents with him, grandparents were there to watch the kid play. And I think it was 2 games that day, but the parents were coming there for the first game, and the kid didn't play. He was just one of the guys that didn't make the lineup that day. And I think there was like 12 or 13 position players, whatever it was on the team. And the dad told me the story 3 days later. He goes, well, I feel like they should send a text out and letting us know when they're not playing. So that way we don't all drive to the field and we're there to watch the game and stuff. So that way we know and we don't waste money and all this stuff like that. And I'm like, oh, are you kidding me, man? Like my dad drove 12 hours away, and my dad drove 12 hours away. Yeah, he wanted to see me play, but he also drove 12 hours away to see me. And you're worried about your son playing in front of his grandparents, which is going to see him many more times. And you feel like that you should be contacted via text or phone call when your son's not making the lineup. And I go, is this really where we are at in this day and age where a coach can't make a decision without somebody getting offended and somebody taking things personal? Like, hey, like I'm purposely making you pay, a $5 ticket to this game so you could not watch your son play. But I kind of wanted to touch on a couple of these stories right here, and it just and kind of get your opinion, Adam, and some of your experiences with this, because at the end of the day, like this is a game. It's a part. It's not who we are. It's a part of who we are. But everybody's trying to make the best decisions possible as a coach, and we've got to stop allowing parents to think it's okay to take things personally.
Well, they take it personally, and then what I don't like about it the most is they talk about it openly with their athlete away from the field. So like at dinner tables, in the car ride home. And so now parents may think they spread that onto their youth athletes, and they're going back to practice thinking coach doesn't like me, or I should be doing this because my dad said so. And then they kind of infect the whole team with that, and they start to talk to other people on the team like, hey, my dad thinks you should be playing this and I should be playing this. The next thing you know, it's like a cancer. And what I always have said with guys is like, there's two ways to cure it. You can either cut it out and get rid of it, or you just let it take over and ruin your whole team. And so parents, you have to stop with this stuff and having these conversations. If you think it all you want, hey, that's on you. You think it, you can talk to it about it with your wife, but do not bring your kid involved in this, because they're going to start, they're young athletes. And we talk about it all the time is they're watching us. They're watching what we talk about, watching what we do. So they're going to mimic the same things and go to their school or go to their team and talk about what my dad thinks we should be running the whole team and how this should all change. So it's baffling for the story you just told. I couldn't believe that he expects to get a text message on who's going to play 3 days out whenever the guy writes the lineup probably 45 minutes before the game. Is absolutely just ridiculous. And it's so crazy that we're in this world. But even at the youth level of travel baseball, I'm seeing so many kids that maybe thought they should have been playing shortstop, played that full season with that team. The next year, their dad goes and starts his own team because his son's going to play shortstop now. Like, it happens all over. So travel ball has become watered down because these dads are taking their sons off the team and starting their own team so they can dictate where their son's going to play. So I can promise you this, when you get to high school, you're not going to be able to do that. Same thing if you get to play in college, like, it's not happening. I remember I've talked with Coach Calvi. There was a former player that he's a junior at the time, and his dad comes into the office trying to dictate what's going to happen with the lineup, and Calvi basically told him, get out. Like, we're not doing this. Like, get out. I don't need you here. And it's just, I would never have thought that happened even at the college level, but I guess that still continues. So parents, just know your role. Sit back and relax and watch the game. If you think your son should be doing better, guess what? I promise you, have you been going to practices to see how he's doing? Have you been going to the scrimmages, the inter squads to see how you're doing? Because everybody on the field will get an opportunity. Now, maybe some get more than others, but that's just the way the game goes. They need their reps in. But if your son's getting an opportunity and he doesn't perform, he's not going to see the playing time that he's supposed to. It's all about winning, production, what gives the player the best chance to win, or what gives the team the best chance to win. Maybe this kid's playing second base. Yeah, maybe he doesn't hit as well as your son, but guess what? He plays the heck out of second base, and he's made one error all year. So that coach is looking at, what does he do for me? He wins more ball games fielding than he does hitting, so he's going to stay there, and that's just the way it is. So you've always got to see the bigger picture to this and look at the numbers. Numbers really don't lie about things. So you can look at it and see, hey, here's the whole batting average on Game Changer. Here's on-base percentage. Here's OPS. And what I would say to his parents is, the big thing I like to look for now is, for hitter standpoint, is on-base percentage, OPS, and then batting average has become kind of third for mine, because it doesn't really tell the whole story. You can still have bad luck, but are these guys getting on base? Because that's how you're going to score runs. So I need guys that can get on base. But then the most important one is to dictate if a team is a good hitting team is look at what are they hitting with runners in scoring position, because that's going to tell you who's the guys that can get it done when guys are on base in front of them. And that's what's ultimately going to knock runs in and win ball games too. So just as you're evaluating all of this, super dads and moms and all this that think you know more than the coach does, hey, just imagine if he came to your job and tried to tell you exactly what to do, or, hey, it's 3 days out, but I think you need to let me know what you plan on doing this week at the office. And so it's mind-boggling that we've gotten to this, and it's out of control. And I'm glad you brought up the experience of yourself with your dad, because you don't know when your son's going to play if they're not an everyday person. Maybe they're struggling, they're going through something, and they have to sit again. Or, I mean, God forsake, if you're a pitcher and you're a bullpen guy, you don't ever know when you're coming in the game. So if you're traveling expecting to see your son, you might go the whole series without seeing him pitch just because his number never really got called. So just know that your kids had an opportunity to produce in practice, in the weight room, in inter squads, in games before, and maybe they didn't produce. It's just a part of it. We've played with guys before at South Alabama in the fall, and we had the nickname of Fall Americans. Like, would hit 500 in the fall, and then maybe the lights came on in the spring, and they got their opportunity, and they weren't ready for it, and so they found their way out of the lineup. Does the guy go back saying, well, I had a great fall? The fall doesn't mean anything anymore. It's what's going to help me win games right now, and that's what it has to ultimately dictate. And you're watching these college games, and you're seeing more guys get yanked out of games now because these rosters are bigger, and your opportunity is even smaller now. So if you get 10 at bats and you go for 10 with 7 strikeouts, you might not play for a while. That's just the way it is. Now, if you get in there and you have some great at bats, knock some balls around, you're going to get more of a chance to prove, okay, I think he can do this. But everything in this game is short-lived, and it's all about timing. You got to be the right place, the right time. And when you do, you've got to perform and get ready for this. So, yeah, that was a great topic. I'm glad you brought that up there, because we talk about parents all the time, and we're not trying to attack you guys. It's just things that we hear from parents, but then we also get to coach too. So we kind of get the best of both worlds of what's going on in these circumstances. Because when we coach games in the summer, we try to win games. Yeah, do we try to be fair and try to get guys equal at bats? I think, speaking from my standpoint, is last summer, I remember I kind of knew my basic 6 or 7 guys that are going to be in every day, and they've earned that opportunity. And then there's going to be those 4 or 5 that you try to find ways to get them in there, and everybody starts to learn their role. But I will say is the first 2 weeks, first two weekends, I remember specifically, we kind of pretty much hit everybody. Like, everybody had an opportunity. And this was kind of like, hey, you've already did your tryout, so to speak, but now this is your game tryout. You get 10 games to show what you can do. And guess what? If somebody had a really good start, they're going to be in that lineup the rest of the way. Somebody maybe got off to a rough start, they're going to have to work their way to get in the lineup and then try to work their way to get up through the lineup.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And unfortunately, entitlement is a word it's used a lot. I don't know if it's overused, but you could be the best hitting instructor in the world. There's always going to be a parent that thinks they know better. You could be the best coach in the world, and like Calvi's a phenomenal Division I coach. There's going to be a parent that thinks they know better. It literally does not matter how elite you are. There's always going to be somebody that is using personal feelings or personal vendettas or personal agendas, or maybe they're just that clueless that they're going to have an opinion on. I had a parent a few years back in the Bulls that was upset and left an evaluation saying that I played favorites on the field. And my kid didn't get enough ABs, and I looked at it, and the kid that had the lowest amount of ABs was just 10 or 15 ABs less than the highest guy that had the most ABs. And that's the thing, is like, we're living in a world where people won't think it's okay to sit every now and then and sit. Like, you have 11, 12 players on a team, you're going to have to sit. There's going to be a couple guys that sit every now and then, and you'll rotate guys in. And like you said, the guys that earn their ability to play every day, they're going to play. And at the end of the day, like, you get your opportunity, you need to show, because you want to be in the position where you're so good, that coach can't afford to take you out. In those situations. My first couple of years at South, like, I had spots where I was really hot and spots where I would get cold. And that showed. And then the last couple of years, I was more consistent. And that's the thing, is like, you've got to understand, like, nobody's perfect in this game, and the coach is trying to win. Like you said, there's different avenues. Like, okay, yes, maybe your kid's hitting 50 points higher than this other kid, but if your kid sucks in the field, he's going to cost you runs in the game. That extra 50 points of batting average means absolutely nothing. It means absolutely nothing. And you talked about certain positions that kids playing and people want to leave. We probably need to have a podcast episode where we focus on just, it does not matter what position you play, because I hear that story all the time.
And I'm glad you brought up favorites, because I get questions like, hey, Coach Adam, do you have favorites? And I'm like, you dang right I have favorites. They're the guys that bust their butt, the guys that don't complain, they play the game the right way. Doesn't mean they have to have the highest batting average or the most home runs. No, because there's guys that had the highest batting average and most home runs that I didn't like. They're just good ball players, but personally, I didn't like the way they played. So, yes, when we have favorites or coaches have favorites, it's because of the stuff that they do off the field and how they handle themselves on the field. Not always is it about, yes, he's my favorite because he's my MVP stat-wise. That's not it. It's just, what is the other thing? So you want to learn how you can become a coach's favorite or a teacher's favorite, is you do the extra stuff and do it 100 miles an hour and play to win the game. Don't play and be selfish.
Absolutely. And I think that's the perfect way to end it right there, guys. We're going to keep uploading more episodes week to week, and like we usually do after that break for spring break, we're going to start uploading these clips, man. And guys, give us some feedback once we start uploading these clips and short clips and tips of the day. If there's anything you guys want to know, any questions you have, obviously you can shoot me and Adam an email. You can message us on social media and so forth. But we really enjoyed this episode, and we're looking forward to the next one, guys. So if you enjoyed it, please leave that 5-star review. Until next time, we'll see you guys later.